The Walking Dead's recent seasons have seen a major turning point in the show with the arrival of Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the villain Negan, who leads the Saviors in an all-out war against Rick's forces. In Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead comics, this is one of the best, most exciting storylines. But when it comes to the adaptation on the show, fans have been less pleased. I think we should break down some of the key differences between the show and the comics. And I have some questions for you guys about adaptations in general. So, hopefully we can get to the bottom of what's going on here. Okay, the first major difference is the overall presence of Negan. In the comics, Negan's presence looms over everything. It really feels like it's a one-on-one between Negan and Rick. But on the show, Jeffrey Dean Morgan feels a lot more like a supporting character. He has appeared in less than half of the episodes in the past 2 seasons. That's significantly less than the other series leads who don't really matter to the plot. Now, this may be because Jeffrey Dean Morgan is really a big-time actor. He probably costs a lot more to the network per episode. While Stephen Ogg, who plays Negan's lieutenant Simon, has really kind of had to fill in as Negan's second half. He's done a fantastic job, but the tag teaming has, in my opinion, resulted in 2 half measures of good villains rather than 1 full measure of Negan that he is in the comics. Now, all the Sans Negan episodes bring us to our second adaptation difference, the new communities like the Scavengers and Oceanside, which really don't play a role in this stage in the comics. The Scavengers is a new creation for the show. Now, both of these colonies just come off as places on a map, really, with their own quirks, rather than real societies that behave the way real people would. Kirkman established that world building so well for the Hilltop and the Kingdom, but anytime an episode is set in Oceanside and the landfill, it's just there's no sense of stakes. Now, another adaptation issue is the role Carol and Daryl play on the show as opposed to in the comics. Now, Daryl isn't even in the comics, but Carol's character is significantly changed from Kirkman's version into one of the most badass characters on TV, really. Now, the problem is because neither of them are part of the all-out war storyline in the comics, the show has kind of been forced to invent new ways for them to participate, which too often has left them inactive. Like, Daryl spent half a season in a prison cell. Carol spent a full season in a freaking cottage doing nothing. Yeah, but at least the show hasn't killed him off, right? Which is the other major adaptation issue fans are confused about. This season saw the death of Rick's son, Carl, which does not happen in the comics at this point. And in fact, Carl goes on to be a very interesting character in the storylines after this war. Maybe the show was just ready to part ways with actor Chandler Riggs and reassign that cooler future storyline to new characters that they want to create. Now, while losing fan-favorite actors like Stephen Yeun, who played Glenn, and Michael Cudlitz, who played Abraham, that might have been harder on viewers. The death of Carl really felt like another departure from the comics that just robs us of seeing the cool guy he would turn into, and another example of the show slowing down a fast-paced war in the comics. Now, it's kind of hard to know for anyone to know if they're doing a good job or not, including the people working on the show, because at some point you're trying to figure out exactly what the audience of the show is. Is it just the fans who know the comics? Is there a separate fan base? Which I honestly think there is. If so many people were upset by Glenn's death, it shows that there are more people watching this show than people who just read the comics. Because Glenn does die in the comics. It is a critical turning point. There is a narrative reason for him to die, but people got so attached to Stephen Yeun's portrayal of that character, and when he left the show, they did lose something that they have not replaced yet. And I am one of the, I think, the minority of viewers who I think Carl's death was justified. And I mean, no offense to the actor, I think they can get more interesting characters. Unfortunately, I just don't think the way there was a disconnect between the writers and Chandler Riggs that just was not working out, and maybe they felt it too. Maybe they felt that actor was ready to move on, and I think they could take that really cool future Carl storyline and apply it to Rick's daughter, or to Enid.
They won't.
Because
here's the thing. When again, staying with for a second, a successful comic book adaptation, there's I would say 3 major things that come to mind about the success of any story in general. But separately, you have your character arc, right? Like, what is your character going to go through? How are they going to change? What are they going to learn by the end? You have your plot arc, which is literally what's going to happen in the story. How do you keep it exciting? Something climactic in the middle. Something a satisfying resolution at the end. And then this one element that I think the Walking Dead TV show loses all the time, and it's just as simple as a character's want and goals, and that being connected to the other 2 things. So instead, where they'll lift a plot arc, they'll stretch the hell out of it, and they'll make it a season of the TV show, even though it's 2 issues of the comics. They'll stretch the hell out of it. Then they'll stretch, which is you would think is a good move, a character arc. It's like, okay, over the course of this whole season, Rick is gonna learn, you know what, he does need other people. It's like, okay, fine. Again, they did that in 2 issues, so that might be a lot, but fine. We want to see him change, so we'll go with you as long as Rick has an actual goal for a whole season that matches those 2 things. Like, he's gonna try to go off on his own and kill every walker or something. Like, he has like something very specific that he's gonna try to do, and throughout the course he's gonna learn about needing other people and go through some sort of plot that's interesting. Instead, they do the other 2, but the characters feel like they're floating along in this story, and so you could kind of like, what you should never be able to do is you can jump in episode 1, jump in a middle episode, jump into the last episode, and you got the whole season. And it's because they don't actually they're never succeeding or failing. They're always in limbo.
Right, yeah. And I mean, to be a bit cynical, I think when you're watching television shows, so many of these problems can just be ignored if you really nail the villain. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan's acting is awesome. I love him in this show. But in terms of how much they use him, think of so many other shows that like are kind of divisive, right? Maybe like Dexter. There's a couple really great seasons of the show Dexter on Showtime, purely because the villain is incredible. Boardwalk Empire, Bobby Cannavale played an amazing character. Amazing villain, I believe is season 3 or 4. There's so many of these like hour-long drama series
Jessica Jones.
And you can get so much done by just letting the villain take over the story for a season, and they have not let Negan do that. They have not unchained him. He appears every 4th episode. It's like, if anything, I mean, as much as I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Stephen Ogg has proven he's such a great character actor, and he is captured that kind of Negan spirit in a way. It makes me wish we could go back in time and just cast him so that you can afford to put him in every single episode and let him be the true lead that Negan should be in this story, because that's a reason people love this storyline in the comics. He's such a fun character.
Yeah, he's on the cover of so many of those issues in the comics.
And he has not been on the cover of most of these episodes. And I think the thing that I hopefully going forward they'll be able to course correct. Maybe it's just a matter of AMC shelling out more money to the budget. We'll see. Well, what do you think The Walking Dead could use more of? Or do you think the show is fine and maybe some of the haters out there should just lay off? Either way, comment down below. And a reminder to you all to subscribe to New Rockstars for all of our recaps and analysis of The Walking Dead episodes. Thanks, everybody.